Hey guys, we're out at the golf course today doing some wedge work. Josh is going to give me some tips on which wedges to use where, and yeah.
Yeah, should be good. We've got a bunch of different options here, so we'll go all the way from like a pitching wedge, basically all the way through a lob wedge. We'll just talk through some different scenarios of when you'd use the clubs, and the best part is I don't have to hit a shot. She's gonna hit all. This will be awesome.
Yeah, get after it.
All right, so here we are, we're in front of the green. This is kind of your basic sort of pitch and run shot. So there's a lot of room for you to roll this ball up there.
Okay.
So you've got a couple of different options. I've obviously got a bunch over here as well. This would be a great time if you were trying to hit a shot that was like lower to the ground, especially today, like with the wind, you could use a pitching wedge. So typically that's gonna be a club that's gonna have anywhere from, call it 43 to 46 or 47 degrees of loft, depending on your set. And then the technique, really all we're doing is basically the same thing we were doing for just a normal chip or a pitch.
Okay.
We're just going to use a club with less loft, so it'll come out a little lower. It'll probably roll a little bit more. So we've got a back pin location. This would be a great time to use that shot.
Okay.
So, go ahead and take your normal setup, grab your pitching wedge. We'll basically play the ball kind of towards the middle of our stance.
Okay.
Basically go back to maybe a little lower than your waist, and then kind of the same length on the follow through.
Oh. That didn't make it there.
That's fine. So you can still see, I mean, even the beauty of this shot is you don't have to necessarily hit it perfect.
Yeah.
But because it's got a little bit more rollout to it, it'll still get kind of heading up towards the flag. You just hit a little behind that one.
Yeah.
So all you can really change here is maybe just instead of that ball was a teeny tiny bit towards the front of your stance, I just move it a little closer towards your trail foot.
Okay. Does that look good right there?
Yep, that's fine. There you go.
So
you can see kind of landed right about the blue flag.
Yep.
If we would have been online, that would have rolled out about the same distance as the red flag.
Yeah.
So that'd be a really good place to use your pitching wedges. Awesome. Shot just like this.
Cool.
All right, so we've moved to a different spot on this green. This is back behind the green. We've got a pin that's kind of tucked in the corner. So there's not a lot of room to really work with here. This would be a great case for you to use your most lofted wedge. So I believe for you, that's your sand wedge. If you had a wedge that even had more loft, like a 56 or a 58 or even a 60, this would be a totally reasonable place to do that from. So the reason we're trying to do that, we want to get the ball a little higher in the air. We want to basically use the height to our advantage to help stop the ball faster because we don't have a ton of green to work with. So I'll trade you. This is your sand wedge versus your pitching wedge. So like I said, a little more loft. The setup stays fairly similar. You're basically still going to try to play that ball out of the middle of your stance. So when you follow through, the only other thing you could do is with your follow through, try to finish with your hands really close to your left pocket and basically rehinge the club just like that.
Okay.
So what that'll help you do is it'll help you keep the face more open.
Okay.
Versus if you're hitting a lower shot, you'd want to follow through with your arms more out in front of you.
Okay.
Close the face and help you hit it a little lower. So
okay.
what you'll see a lot of the best pitchers of the golf ball do is they'll finish their swing with their hands really close to their pocket and their shaft standing really vertical.
Okay.
So what you're trying to do, this is basically get it inside of, call it, 15 feet. Perfect.
Get in the hole.
There you go. Okay, so we're in basically the exact same spot where we were for your sand wedge shot. But what I want to show you is something else that you could do from here. So let's say instead of having the flag tucked back into the corner, the flag's more like in the center part of the green or even down on the very far end. So this green slopes a ton from back to front. So what you could do here with your different wedges in your bag is you could potentially use a club with a little less loft. So I may not go all the way to a pitching wedge, but you could hit like a gap wedge here. So what I want to do is I want to just show you the differences. So I want to hit one to the white flag, but we'll do the first one with a sand wedge. So similar to kind of the technique we used before, this ball come out a little higher, stop a little faster, and then we'll hit one with the gap wedge just to show you guys kind of the difference in the roll that you would get and where you might want to potentially use this on the golf course. Cool. So let's hit the sand wedge shot first. So same thing, we'll just have the ball pretty much in the middle. Yep. There you go. So you can see, doesn't quite roll all the way to the hole, like stops a little short. So now let's switch to your gap wedge. So your gap wedge is typically going to be something with a loft of, call it between 48 and 52 or 54 degrees, depending on how your set's made up. So this one's going to have a little less loft. So if you make that same type of swing, this ball should roll out a little bit more. There you go. So he comes out a little lower, rolls a little bit longer. Okay, so two examples of obviously a sand wedge and a gap wedge, totally dealer's choice on like what you want to do here. This is really like, this is where you can have some creativity around the greens, kind of pick and choose what you want to do. What I generally recommend to students is get really good with one club first before you start adding in the variety of like other wedges and different types of shots. Doesn't mean that it's wrong to do that if that's what you feel like you want to do. So I just generally recommend like use one wedge so that you can minimize the decision making, simplify the process. And then once you've gotten to the point where you can hit that shot really well, then you can start to add in the variety of using a gap wedge or something else. Okay, so now we're behind this bunker. We've got to hit it over something and land it on the green. So this is one that a lot of students, I think, get extremely timid about. They're scared to hit this shot because they don't want to end up in the bunker. So
I can see that.
I'm sure that's probably very common. You may have experienced that.
That's how I feel, yeah.
So for this shot, really, we're trying to use, again, a club with a lot of loft. So for you, that's going to be your sand wedge. For those of you watching, this could be a 58, a 60 degree. You want to use something that's going to be able to get the ball up in the air. Okay, that would be step number one. Step number two, with this shot especially, because you have a little bit more loft on the club, don't be afraid to create the speed you need to hit this ball as far as we need to go. So as far as like setup and stance, similar to what we've been doing, the ball should stay fairly close to the center. I wouldn't necessarily add a ton of loft because you already have quite a bit of loft on your sand wedge. You could open the face a teeny tiny bit. For those of you watching, the more you open the face, the more you use the bounce of the club, which is the bottom part which slides. The more you close the face, the more you're going to use the leading edge of the club. That's the part that digs.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're trying to avoid doing, is digging this club into the ground.
Okay. Not quite enough power?
Not quite enough power, but we got the loft that we needed. We got the ball over the bunker. Like, the objective here is really get the ball on the green. Don't even think about the golf ball. Try to hit the ground.
Okay.
See? That was the best one.
Oh my gosh, that was so good.
All right, here we are, greenside bunker shot. So we got a ton of different options here. We've got some green to work with. For this shot in particular, you're gonna wanna open the club face. So it wouldn't be wrong to use a club that maybe has a little bit of less loft.
Okay.
So like you've got your sand wedge, that's probably right around 54, 55 degrees. I've got a 58, really kind of dealer's choice on what you want to use here. The biggest thing with this shot is just the setup and the technique. So let's talk through that a little bit.
Okay.
So you're definitely not trying to hit the golf ball here. You're actually trying to hit the sand behind the ball. So I'm just gonna draw a line, you know, kind of where you want to hit the ground. That would be essentially where I would want the middle of my stance to be.
Okay.
All you're trying to do is hit the line.
Okay.
Like if you can do that, that's the trademark of like really good bunker players, is they hit the ground in the same spot. So where that line is, that's the center of my stance. That would be where the bottom of my swing would be. And then obviously if that's the bottom of my swing, then I'd hit the sand first and then the golf ball would just fly out with the sand.
Okay.
That's why you'd put it in the middle. The other piece to add in is just opening the face. So you want to make sure that instead of playing the club with its normal kind of stated loft, you just have that face be a little more open. It's probably going to point the scoring lines more out to the right. In order to accommodate for that, you can just shift your aim slightly back to the left.
Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. See how high that came out? Yes. Expert bunker player.
Oh yeah.
All right, so a couple of different examples of just how to use potentially some different lofted wedges in your bag for some different shots. So lots of variability around the greens. This is where you can be creative. So really nice job. Thank you to Lexi for demonstrating all the shots really well. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and if you guys want to work on your game, head to your closest GOLFTEC and get a lesson today.